The next step in setting up a contract is creating the progress billing schedule of values that will be used in progress billing. We have a link to that here. When we click on that link, if there is no schedule of values currently, it's going to generate a sort of template, and it's taking information from the contacts, filling out basically a standardized form, and taking information from the contract. That's the contract amount we put in. It's a little different than the proposal's amount. And then it breaks down the total price of the contract into different lines. And the reason for that, and this is a very popular way, form and format for billing construction projects, the reason is because we're not performing all of this and then we send them a bill. Think about how crazy would that be if you have a $100,000 contract, you're going to do the whole entire thing and then say, please pay me. I mean, we're going to spend probably $80,000 performing this job. Would you lay out $80,000 and then say, please pay me? It just doesn't, it's not a reasonable way. And that's why the industry has gravitated toward breaking down the contract price into the incremental steps or things which occur from the beginning to the end of the project. And within BidUnity, we see this kind of a template arrangement of different schedules and items, and that comes from the proposal. If we look at the proposal, and you could see the storefront scope of work, it's 88,000, and then we have the material is 61. The field labor associated with the storefront, that's 25,000. In our proposal, it's 26. I guess that includes shop and field to get to 26. What we have over here. Okay, I just reformatted the description of work to make it a little bit more understandable. But for the storefront material, we have 57,612. Over here, we have 61. For the labor, we have 26. Over here, we have 25. In the brake metal material category, in our proposal, we have 16. And our labor, we have 24. So we have 15 and 22. You can see all of these lines, they're a little bit reduced. Okay, over here we have per diem 29.91. Over here per diem is 3,200. And this top line, submission, engineering, mobilization, that does not appear anywhere on our proposal. Okay, but the way that this works is we want to structure our billing and our cash flow to match the costs as we're incurring them. If you think about that, we're contracting to perform the job, we're going to do the work, we're going to spend money doing the work, and we're going to send them a bill at or around the end of every month. So the 20th to the 25th, we're going to be receiving payment for that on average about 60 days later. And so we want to make sure that our cash flow is as good as it can be. If you're laying out money for 2 months, you'd want to recover that money as quickly as you can. So our proposal provides a very relatively detailed breakdown of the cost of the different items, but it doesn't include any cost for our indirect expenses, such as administration, engineering, preparing to mobilize for the job. And we want to break out some percentage of the contract price and front load our billing. And we've been able to get away with about 6.5%, 6% to 6.5% of the contract price in a line item, submissions, engineering, and mobilization. We're always going to be billing this first line item. When we review and sign the contract and send our shop drawings, we're sending it with the first invoice, which is going to, at a minimum, include this line item, and that helps with cash flow. But we have, from our proposal, we included certain indirect expenses. Those show up here. This schedule of values, when the page loads, it's being rendered from a template. And I'll show you when we send out the proposal, we have a link to the scheduled values, and we have a very similar presentation to the customer. This is what is available to our customer when we send the proposal, and this presentation, it aggregates all of the overhead expenses into this first line item, whereas here we're not aggregating them into the first line item. We get pushback from customers. Our general contractor customers, they have a responsibility to make sure that the funds for the project are properly applied and used in the performance of the project. They don't want to pay somebody $1 million and then that person just disappears. Okay, so they want to see work on the job, and then they want to make a payment for that work. And that's what we're trying to structure. But we really haven't received any kind of commentary regarding a difference between this and whatever we end up with eventually. I want to explain how this gets used in the course of a typical project. So this is a storage building that we performed this contract. You could see we had a schedule of values, and then in April we created a bill. So we billed that first line item in April, and then in May, looks like we billed 50% of storefronts, and we billed, looks like 0% of anything else. In June, okay, we changed, you could see the work completed in this period. So we have some billing here, that's 50%. And that brought that line to 100%. Line item number 9, we're billing 65% of storefront associated labor, and this is in the June time frame. Okay, we have 50% of a lift budget, a forklift budget, per diem at 65%, hotel budget at 50%. Okay, and that's the June time frame. In July, looks like we're getting everything to 100 in July. So I think that we must have finished that thing up in July. Okay, and then here we are in October, and we are billing, looks like retention. Yeah, okay, retainage summary, it shows 0 is currently being held in retainage. If I go back to July, okay, the completed work, total completed and stored to date, that's the contract amount, so that's 100% of everything. Per the contract terms, 10% of completed work is retained, so the total completed less the 10% is 384. Previous applications, 304, so the current payment is 79,000. And the contract balance, which is retention, is retention. So that was for July, and then if we look at October, okay, completed work, it's 100%. We're just moving over retention and billing for retention. And then let's see, what do we have in November? In November, looks like we have change order 1 and change order 2. Okay, so we're performing a change order here, and that's 5,700. We're not withholding any retention on that, and so at the end of the job they added something that's change order 2. Now on our current, create new bill, so this would be for the current period, I could create a bill, I can create one bill per month. Here, this gives me access to the changes. Okay, so I see added this was added to 5,700, perfect. And the way the change orders become added, if there are change orders, we have a little blue box that shows the number of change orders, and if you click on it, then we'll have a status available to, accept them, which adds them to the schedule. It adds a new line. And when we do that, we can edit the text of the line. It doesn't have to say change order 1, change order 2. I prefer, if I go back to this project, I prefer, it helps me to know what I'm looking at when the change order has some kind of a description or name. So if I look at the second change order, okay, change order 2, interior brake metal trim, okay, provide and install brake metal trim at sill and jambs of storefront frames, second and third floor only, okay, so that costs 41, we're charging 57, maybe that's correct, but the change order name, interior brake metal trim, that is the perfect thing for us to include when we add it, change order 2 dash interior brake metal trim. And looking at this line item, it is that much more helpful in my view. But what we're trying to set up in the schedule of values is the structure of how this is going to be built. So what things are we going to be associating the revenues that we're earning? What things are we going to associate our revenues with? And so when you look at the benchmarks that we chose to do that, the submissions, engineering, mobilization, we're billing for that immediately. As soon as we create and send the shop drawings, we're billing for that. Now, that is something that we're going to consider as completed work. If we made the shop drawings, we should be paid for that. Reasonable. The boom lift budget, okay, it's $30,000 for a boom lift, okay, and I presume that would be like having a piece of equipment on a job site for like 3 or 4 months, or having 3 or 4 pieces of equipment for 1 month. We have a forklift budget. I mean, that's quite a bit of money as well. I don't know how much we actually spent, but in order for me to bill $30,000, if I have one boom lift on the job and it costs me $3,000 a month, I kind of need to have it there for 10 months for me to spend $30,000. So let's say it cost me 2 and I'm charging them 3, I still need to have it there for 10 months to get to 30,000. So we need to be careful about what the value and what the line item are, because if we are going to need, for example, well, let's look at a different job. Yeah, the current job is a perfect example. So per diem, man day, I'm billing them at the end of the month. I'm getting the money back 2 months later. So whatever I pay in per diem per man day, I'm going to get that back 2 months after I pay it. But I can't pay all of this money. I can't earn it. I can't complete it. And this also is not work. The owner of the property when they're totally finished, done, completed, and they get an appraisal, they want the value of their property to be high. And how much of the per diem per man per day, how much of that amount is incorporated into their structure? So it makes sense to have, a line item of this nature as it relates to our cash flow, but it doesn't make sense from the owner's perspective. They're paying overhead. They're not paying for the value of their building to be increased. They would probably prefer for this line item in the, almost $3,000 to be associated with the storefront material. That's something that they're keeping. So the way that this form is set up, we can edit the different line items and the names of the line items. So I'm going to delete engineering here, and whatever values I change, the first line item value, that's going to change in response. So if I wanted to charge, let's say, if I wanted to make this 4,000, that's going to reduce the value of the first line. If I make this 5,000, it reduces the value of the first line. If I click on the red minus, it's going to delete that line, and it's going to add the entire value to the submissions line. The hotel line, I don't like the hotel line because I have to stay in a hotel and I have to accumulate hotel costs. And how much did I really spend on a hotel? I'm telling them it's $135 a night. What if I spend $150 or $160? I realize all of this stuff, it doesn't seem too important, and it's kind of strange to think about it, but I want to share some information with you about our previous experience on jobs that's going to help you understand the importance. This example is the Mooney residence. We ordered pre-glazed storefront frames for a house that was under construction, and the owner agreed on, order these frames to these sizes. We're going to make the openings these sizes, and then we delivered the pre-glazed frames. We measured the sizes, and we sent an email saying, hey, you didn't build the openings to the sizes. You're off by like 8 inches here, 12 inches there. And they responded by saying, well, you should have measured, come and get your windows. Of course, we couldn't just eat $30,000 of windows. So what we had to do is we had to file suit. We had to go to, arbitration, and the arbitrator, they looked at the schedule of values. The arbitrator is expecting that Doran Glass would have structured its schedule of values in a way that reflects the value of what Doran Glass was going to be doing on the job. And so the arbitrator's analysis included, okay, what's line item 1? Okay, did you hire an engineer? Well, how much of this $3,100 did you allocate to spending on the engineer that you didn't hire? And we can give that money back to them. And I explained to the arbitrator, line 1, it's a generic text that just pre-populates, and by engineering we mean the analysis that goes into determining what is the correct configuration of windows and components. And we don't necessarily mean that we're allocating funds to be spent on a professional structural engineer. So that the arbitrator allowed us to recover that amount. The lift for installation of storefront, the arbitrator said, well, did you ever rent a lift? And we said, no, we didn't. And he said, okay, well, you don't get to collect any of that amount because you didn't do anything. What about this telehandler? Okay, you don't get to collect any of that amount. Okay, this line item, you delivered the windows? Okay, you can get paid for the windows. What about the labor? Did you do any labor? Okay, you don't get paid for labor. So the way that we structure this thing, it's very important when it comes to the interpretation of somebody else. It's also important, for how we recognize the cash flow. In the proposal that we sent out, the original form of this, it was this. We have another job. This one is currently in litigation. Um, let's see. This is from, let's see, we're going back to April 30th of 2020. It's incredible. The trial date for this thing is actually set for next week. I think it begins on the 9th. So that's, nearly 4 years. But what happened in this case is we had a contract to do the storefronts on a building, and we went and measured, and we fabricated frames, we ordered glass, we had the glass delivered to the job site, we had the frames built at our shop, loaded on a trailer, ready to be delivered, and then the general contractor was fired by the owner. So the owner just terminated the general contractor's contract, and I still don't know why, but the owner never made any payments to anybody and actually sent an email to me saying, come pick up your glass. Well, I explained that the glass is all custom ordered for your building and I can't use it for anything else. So now that we're in litigation, everybody wants to look at the schedule of values and they want to try and figure out, can we pay Door and Glass less money based on how they put together their schedule of values? So what we're showing here is that we have frame material, glass material, and labor. Now, what if I didn't spend a certain amount on the glass? What if I didn't spend 43% of the expected amount that I was going to spend? What if I didn't, it doesn't matter how we put together the schedule of values. What the other side wants to do is pick it apart and see where did their funds go and how can I have less liability to pay for, canceling the contract. And so if we had in here lifts or equipment that never was used, then for sure that part of the contract amount, it's not going to get paid. So when we make up this new schedule of values, what do we want to say? Do we want to say hotel room? I don't think so. Do we want to say a very specific type of equipment? I don't think so. I think saying equipment is about as descriptive as we want to be. What kind of equipment is it that you're talking about? It could be, our suction cups or our trailer or the use of our glass lifter, or it could be the use of any of our equipment, When we specify, very clearly exactly what something is, then the question, did you spend money on that thing? It's easy to answer yes or no. But if it's equipment, then did you spend money on equipment? Well, I guess. I mean, we have trailers and trucks and tools, and we used all of that stuff. Okay, well, how much of that line item do you want to keep? It's very important to think about the composition of this in a smart way ahead of time, just recognizing we have really two primary goals. One is to structure it in a way that matches our anticipated cash flows and expenses. And number two is to structure it in a way that protects the company from potential unfair resolution if we end up getting into a problem in the course of our performance. Let's take a look here. I have another project. So this example, so really the last one I think I want to explain, but we have a contract to perform basically storefront and curtain wall installation on a project. It's a $300,000 contract, and we have beginning in May we did some billing, and then February looks like we did some billing. The way that we have this put together, we included let's see, maybe a different way of looking at this is going to be more beneficial. Well, 0841, that's storefront material, that's storefront labor. I think that's, this is curtain wall material, curtain wall labor, storefront material, storefront labor. And it's going to be brake metal material, brake metal labor. So, in this case, we have everything lumped together very nicely, and we were performing this job. We fabricated all the frames. We fabricated, had ordered some glass for some of the frames, but there were a large number of frames which we couldn't get the opening sizes. The contractor just kept delaying and delaying getting them constructed. And they wouldn't tell us what size to make them. They just told us, hang on, we're going to get them ready and you can come measure. We went out there like 4 times to measure. They were never ready, any of those 4 times. And it was a custom painted, black painted material job, so we can't just fabricate half of it because we're going to lose, optimization and yields. We need all the sizes to fabricate it. So they did not get everything completed on time, and it delayed us from measuring. So finally, we did get the measurements, and we proceeded immediately fabricating the material, ordering the glass. Well, the contractor said to us, hey, you guys, we need to get the wood installed in the building, and we need to condition the wood, so we need to get the building enclosed, and we need to get the air conditioner going. We need to get it, the wood conditioned so that when we install it, it doesn't warp and bow when we enclose the building. So we're going to have another company basically board up all of the frames that you put in, and this is the scope of the job. I mean, it's a pretty large project. So they say, we're going to have another company put in all of this material. We just want you to focus on putting in the frames, and then they'll use a Lexan or something like that, acrylic material, and put them in your frames. And then once they're done with that and you do get the glass, then you could go ahead and you could install the glass. So we continued on with the job, and then after we put the frames in, they called me and said, hey, we're just going to have these other guys do the glass. Okay, I realized I wasn't providing a clear picture of what happened, so I found the application for payment. So this is the schedule of values that we actually used to build this project. Okay, and you can see what we have in BidUnity just kind of by default. It's completely different than what we actually provided to them as the basis of our billing. Okay, so we installed the frame material completely. They had to pay somebody else, I think it was about $18,000 for the Lexan to get the space conditioned, and clever people as they are, and everybody that we do business with is smarter than we are, they looked at our schedule of values and they said, oh my gosh, Doran Glass has more than half of the contract amount, or half of the contract amount, it's just glass. They already did everything else. This company we have doing this acrylic Lexan temporary stuff, they're charging us $18,000 to put in all of this stuff. I wonder how much would it be for them to put in all of the glass for the whole thing. So they got a price from that company, and then they called me and they said, hey, we're just going to have this other company do the glass. And I said, well, okay, the glass cost me about $26,000. It'll take a week to put it in, so it may be like $35,000 for me to do all of the glass. And they said, okay, well, send us a change order. And so I sent them a change order and followed up, and they said, well, we're going to pay them, based on what it costs, and, don't worry, we're going to treat you fairly. Well, fast forward 2 months, we're done with the job, they're done with the job, and they send me a deductive change order, not for $35,000, but for $102,000. So how did they get to $102,000? They just made up, and they said that's what it costs. So, and our paperwork sort of somewhat supported that, and so ultimately it made our ability to recover, for the work that was actually performed, it made our ability to recover that much harder. And probably that whole thing never would have happened if our schedule of values accurately reflected the value of, the materials. You can see, if we look at the budget, we have 49,000 and 16,000. That's $65,000. So we nearly tripled the value of the glass on our schedule of values. And why would we do that? Why would we not have a line item for administration? So we have to do what to bill and receive payment for the storefront framing? Do we need to install it on the job? Do we need to receive it at our shop? The terms of the contract will tell us. Normally what we expect is we need to receive the material at our shop, but that for sure needs to be clarified in the contract. It's implied that the storefront framing needs to be on the job site in order for it to be billable by us. We need to clarify that term ahead of time, that we can receive the material at our shop. When we order it, we're incurring expenses. We need to make sure that we can recover those funds through the terms of the contract. Now, we're not going to be able to order the glass until after we know what size glass to order. Okay, we can order the storefront framing as soon as our shop drawings are approved. We're ordering that. So in this case, if we go back and look at their scheduled billing, this is application number 1. It's from March 20th, and it includes 100% of the storefront material. This is application 2. It's from the following month. It includes, now new in this period, 40% of the glass, some labor, and a change order, but I'm billing 100% of the storefront frame material before I'm billing the glass. You would not want to put all of the money in the last thing that you bill, because you make door and glass vulnerable to the same thing that occurred on this project, where a customer is looking at an unbalanced schedule and saying, hey, wait a second, I can start shopping now and I could buy this glass for $30,000, but they say it's worth $154. I'm going to pay $30. I'll take $100 from them and I'll give them $54. Like, clearly this schedule is not balanced when you look at our costs, being that $65,000 of the contract price, according to the proposal, it's 16 and 49, so that's 65,000. That's about 20% of the proposal price. Why does it show up in our schedule of values as being 50% of the contract price? Okay, that created a problem for us down the road. Somebody looking at how we put this together decided that they could breach our contract and then basically keep about $70,000 for themselves, which is what eventually happened. So, so with all of those painful lessons behind us, we're going to eliminate hotel. We're going to eliminate this lift equipment. We have storefront material, storefront labor, brake metal material, brake metal labor. What I think we want to do, let's take a look at our proposal. Okay, so we're expecting to spend 70,000. I'm actually looking at the accepted proposal, and that's not the one I want to use. I want to look at the contract review, which is the reconciled scope of work. I want to look at this one because this is how we're expecting to perform the job. So let's see our budgets here. We're expecting to spend 78,000, call it. So we have all of this equipment and travel related stuff. And then we have 82,000 associated with the storefront. Glazing is only $20,000. Okay, so I have 38,000 my cost on material related to storefront, and 2,000 relating to brake metal. So that's 38 and 2. About $40,000 is material, our direct cost. Now if I come back into here, of material and brake metal, I think this brake metal amount, it's such a small amount, we probably could just eliminate it, but I guess we'll leave it on here. Now, I look at the difference. I'm getting the brake metal material first, and I'm doing the labor second. So for sure, I want to charge more here, and I want to charge less here. We'll just use even numbers. Okay, and then my storefront labor, if I go back into my proposal budget, okay, manufacturing labor is 83, that's 11, total of 19. So let's say 40% of the labor amount is going to be associated with manufacturing. So let's take this storefront labor and let's go back to our proposal. So we have 15,000 here. Let's make this line 15,000, and let's make this line the additional 10,000. Okay, so what we're doing is we're taking labor and we're moving it up into an item that we're going to be billing sooner rather than later. And submissions, mobilization, are we going to get 20% of the contract price for that? Most likely not. What we could expect is, I clicked on the green button to add a new line. What we could expect is, roughly 6%. That was originally about 6,500. Hit cancel, and I'll reload this. It's gonna show me by default, what these values are. So 6%, 6,803. So if I do 6,803, I need 11,870 to get back to that original one. So what do I put this? This includes travel and equipment. I am going to call it equipment. And I think I want to move some of that from here into our storefront material. So let's say equipment is about 8,870, and I need to put, let me put 2,000 here, and let's see, do we have room somewhere else? Okay, I just want to look at the default values that load from BidUnity and compare them to the values that I'm getting. So I'm $1,000 above here. that's good. I'm front loading some money. The equipment line is, looks like about $800 more than per diem and hotel. I'm not going to be billing the equipment line until after I'm on the job mobilized. Over here I have $3,000 for equipment, and I moved $5,000 from my hotel into my equipment. I want to get money for the hotel as soon as I can. In the equipment, maybe I don't put myself in the best position to do that. Okay, so what I could do is look at lowering my equipment slightly. I could put some of those funds into the storefront material. That I'm likely to be ordering when the shop drawings are approved, so that's going to be one of the, at least the framing and the doors, I'll be getting that early. I'm not breaking out the glass as a separate line item so that I can maintain some discretion over the exact amounts that we bill for frame and glass. Maybe it's 60-40, 50-50. I would want to bill that line in proportion to the costs I incur relative to the total cost that I expect to be incurred. I'm looking at the brake metal line item. I have 15 and 22. That's 37. Here I have 37. I don't need to carry all 37 in the brake metal. That material, I'm going to order that early with the storefront material. So that's another thing. I could reduce it, but I'm billing it early. And the line that I'm billing immediately, that's already slightly above the 6% that we get pushed back if we, get too carried away with it. Now, in case things go bad on this contract, I don't want to be, tied to $8,800 in equipment that we never furnished. So I'm gonna add in $800. Well, let me see. Let me add in. Yeah, we'll say 200. Okay. Just kind of making a little bit of random, random numbers in here. I don't like to see everything to the nearest hundred. It just seems to indicate that we rounded our way through the whole thing, but that's going to be more or less in line with what our performance costs are likely to be. And we put the travel, hotel and per diem into our equipment line. We put our equipment line into our storefront material. We reduced everything by a little bit, front loaded that. I think this is a balanced schedule that is going to serve everybody's interest and keep the cash flows for our performance in proportion to our actual performance. So as you're working through this, we see there's a description of work legend 0841 on 3.2. That's reflected up here. This describes it as aluminum storefront. 0558, that describes it as brake metal. We have the ability to edit any of the names, how they appear on the schedule of values. That's how they're going to appear going forward. It's used in all of the subsequent progress bills. We have this field. If we have received any payments, we can put in the amount that's received. Okay, schedule of suppliers. So this is based on the proposal and what we're going to spend on the various different things. So I have a pretty small amount for the storefront metal here. Looks like I have 21,000 for the glass. This could be a nice thing to reference. as you're making up the schedule values. So it looks like about 35,000 in the major material purchases, and our schedule, it's about double for material. I think that is going to give us, cash flow about the best we could hope for, because we actually do have to do the work to get paid. So we want to regard this note, making sure that the architect schedule values are that they're recorded in the way we want them to appear on future bills. Subsequent progress bills reference the information that we save here. So when we edit this, we're going to be pulling up that information going forward. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Now I can create a new bill immediately. Okay, and my application date, it's going to be December 25th per the contract. We're billing, to the end of the month, and I'm going to go ahead and I'll leave this undone currently. I'll leave this undone because it's now the 3rd. We have time. We could do the submission, get it approved, and place some material orders. I'll be wanting to bill for the material when I place the orders. If I go to our work in progress page, so that's bidunity.com/contracts, this is showing up under Palm. Okay, and it tells us, this is a nice summary page, active contracts. It tells us the billing date, bill through, so the bill is due on the 25th of the month. If I open this up to all projects, I could click through here. This table tells us it was last billed. That would be last month. The bill is due on the 20th of the month. This project's 100% billed. It's not in a discharge status, and it continues to show up on our list because we haven't recorded receipt of the final payment. We also, when we finish projects, we need to click in here. We need to update first date worked, last date worked. So I'm finding a couple of things out of date here. It's pretty easy to update them. I just click on the project name. I'm going to go to schedule. If I scroll down to the bottom of the page, view calendar, this is going to pull up the schedule with only the particular project selected. I'm going to change this to a monthly time frame, and then I'm just going to go back and figure out when did we finish the job. If I click on the appointment, scope of work, interior trim, glass stop, finish caulk. Okay, so we are completing, kind of looks like substantial work. Interior trim work, exterior caulk. Yeah. We need to be careful about recognizing the final completion date. That's when we do something that the owner would notice. It would be like putting in a window where the window wasn't there before. The standard for this is not we go back and we adjust the door closer. It's doing actual construction work that somebody would notice that we did something. So I'm going to consider our completion date November 8th. I'm going to navigate back through time here. Let's see if we can find out when did we start this. In September, looks like we're ongoing. Okay, August, July. We have quite a bit. Those guys are working in the shop. Okay, here we have, let's see, install begins. Okay, so that is 17th of June. So June 17th to November 8th. I'm going to go back to the contract page. and I'm going to find that job. Okay, we have it as starting on May 12th. Okay, it was ended November 8th, 2024. I'm going to put this as 9th because it's going to save it as the 8th. Okay, so this is pretty simple to update the project information. So Space Shop, I know from talking to them, they're running quite a bit behind. This one needs to be probably pushed back, let's say early March time frame. CubeSmart, I'm not sure what's going on with this one. I think we should be starting it around now. Let's see, what do we have? Pre-construction, hoping to start on 12/9. Okay, well, we're hoping to start on 12/9. So then we're not expecting to start on 11/5. So easy. Okay, so we can see, quick, easy updating to the schedule that relates back to the production plan. We can regard our manpower obligations, and then we have the billing. So it tells us when we need to bill. We're billing the project through what date. It could be the 30th of the month. It could be, anytime. The bill, this tells us when it was last billed. So this was last billed in August. It's now December. You can see we billed already $14,000. We have a contract value $248. We received payments of $14,500. We can also put in the incurred expense. We just transfer that from QuickBooks. We could compare our incurred expenses to our budgeted expenses, and we could see, are we keeping up with the billing, at least in that way. So the incurred cost and the payments received, this data comes from QuickBooks. It's important for it to be synchronized, updated. We should be doing that at least on a monthly basis. I would think about the middle of the month, so that we have it current at the, around the 20th, so that we're looking at good data at the time that we're doing most of the project billing. But it's a quick, easy list. It shows us all our current obligations, and it shows us when we need to have the bills created. It shows us when we last, when we created the last bill, if we have never created any bills, if we, let's see if we can find some other statuses. Okay, 100% billed. Okay, so there are no more bills to create, and it's a pretty simple, easy summary. If we want to do the project billing, then we could just simply come in here and we'll see. We don't have any examples because it's the beginning of the month, but if we go back to our Palm Bay project, if I click here, it's going to take me to the billing page. Okay, and I said I wouldn't do it, but I'll just go ahead. I'm going to save application number 1. When I do the progress billing, I have some waiver forms that automatically generate. Statement of supplier accounts that automatically generates. It's from the proposal. It's not necessarily accurate, and I don't think that we want to use this form to send to the customer when it is required for us to send a statement of supplier accounts. We'll transpose that somewhere else, but I update the percentages, and then I click Save Application Number 1. Now, it takes me to a screen I can create a new bill. Okay, so next month, it's going to have next month's dates in here. It's always going to have the application date as the current month period, the month that we're in. When I make the next bill, I put in the percentages of what's complete. I save application number 2. If I have any change orders, then when I click on this, it's going to allow me to add them. So if I go back to my work in progress schedule and I refresh this page and see if I can find Palm. Okay, so now this is showing the amount, the total amount billed. It's also showing here in this link the amount that's billed in this period. That's the bill that we just created. It has a check mark, billed through. Okay, so in this current month, when we create the bill, it's going to show us that we did the bill for this period in this way. It's not telling us the date that the bill needs to be created for this monthly period. We still have access to update the starting date and put in incurred and received payments. So if I click on the bill once again, it takes me back to the billing page where I can create new bills. If I inadvertently create a bill, we might as well just do that now. Okay, so let's say we want to bill 50% of that. Can save this. Okay, now I made a mistake. Okay, because of the way these applications are made in a series, I can't go back to the application number 1 and then make changes to it, because that would affect application number 2. Application number 2, it's based on number 1 is correct, and so if I want to make changes, I have to delete the last bill. So I just deleted it. Now I can make a new application number 2. I can go back to number 1. I can delete number 1. And then I can go back to the schedule of values. Okay, I can't edit the schedule of values or change it if any bills have already been created. So I could edit the schedule of values at this point, and this page loads slightly differently than it did at first. I don't have that type of work, work type legend any longer. If I wanted access to that information, I could get to it if I go to the proposal and look at the schedule of values that generates with the proposal. And that, by the way, settings, if I go to proposal settings, I can control the visibility of the schedule of values. If I want it to show or not, that link that we have from the proposal to the schedule of values. If I don't want this page to show up, then I just disable it in the proposal settings. And that's a high level and fairly complete explanation of the schedule of values, how it's used, the progress billing. You want to definitely be thoughtful to structure the schedule of values in a way that adequately, fairly represents the cash costs and amounts earned. Everything should be in proportion to how we incur costs, or if not, then it should be slightly tilted toward Doran class's benefit.